Hi there, this is Fixed It. A friend of mine has asked me to have a look at this Nintendo DS. Unfortunately, the fact that the DS is a shell case means that it can be prone to damage, and in this case it was quite simple. It was on a chair and somebody sat down, breaking the hinge at the back. The first thing I'm going to do is to switch it on and see if it actually comes to life before I start doing anything else. Not very well. It is trying to come to life, but at least the display is showing something, which means the cable to the display hasn't snapped. So what I plan to do is to replace the case, and I've just brought a replacement case on eBay, and I'm going to dismantle this and change the case. This is the console replacement housing case that I purchased, and obviously the red one. The box contains a full selection of parts and switches, which is really good, and it isn't as shiny as the original. It's more of a matte colour, but it'll certainly do the job at enacting the repair and saving quite a lot of money. Looking at the parts that have arrived, what I noticed was that of course the top plate is completely separate, so I might be able to get by with just replacing the top plate rather than having to dismantle and replace the entire case, because then it'll keep the glossy look of the case while also putting back their broken hinge. The first thing I need to do is to take out the battery, which is underneath these two screws, and then take off the back by removing the other screws. Before I do that, what I'll do is I'll just magnetize the heads of these screwdrivers, because that makes it so much easier. Also, one of these magnetic gadgets is really good when you're actually getting the screws out, because sometimes you can't get your fingers around them, but this super magnet will lift them right out. I've taken the battery cover off, and the next job is to take the battery out. Take the battery out before you start undoing any other screws, otherwise if you have a short circuit when you're messing around with the back, you'll fry the machine. Battery's out, it's safe. Take out the stylus. I mentioned about using the magnet. There's a minute little screw here which is difficult, and even the screwdriver doesn't pick it up, but of course this device does, so we can set that aside. The other thing to remember is that there are screws underneath these rubber pads, so we'll need to lift those rubber pads gently with a flat-ended screwdriver. So I've got a very fine tip flat-ended screwdriver, prise it underneath, lift the pad and put it with the collection of screws of the first set of screws that you're taking off. Keep them together. Again, I've loosened a screw, but I can't get at it, but that does. Don't forget this screw. Now what you need to do is to gently prise open the case from the front side. Don't try and do it from the back, because there's a ribbon cable attached at the back. So I use one of these tools that I bought off eBay. Just a simple tool pack that cost me less than a couple of pounds, which are absolutely fantastic, not only for this job. So with the edges unclipped, I can now lift up the cable here, and at the back there's actually a connector, and I want to lift that up. As I'm not planning to replace the entire case at this time, what I'll do is I'll just put that part, the bottom part, to one side, and then I can work on this unit. Now what I need to do is to remove these ribbon cables, and I do that by prising up the little connector which is holding them in place with a flat-headed screwdriver. Let me just try and get that one. It's a bit tricky. it's going. There you go. And the same for that one down there. Just flick him up. And the same over here. Now what I want to do is to take out the power connector, which I do by just taking this little flat-headed screwdriver and getting it underneath it and just prising it up. Okay, that's it, and it's out of the way. Now what I want to do is to tease out these cables that I've released. I also need to remove this other little cable here, so let's just flick that up. Okay, spin it round and remove that cable too. Okay, so that's how the cable's done. Obviously the motherboard is still held in place by the screws. Let's undo those screws, because you don't want to break anything at this stage. And now the motherboard can be lifted. There's another cable here on this side that needs to be disconnected. Okay, so flip that up, that cable now comes out. And now what we need to do is to pay attention to these two cables here. So if we turn the board over, I can now flip up this unit. Okay. And there we go, put it to one side. Gently does it, and then also flip up this little micro cable here. Okay, and the two of them go out, and then the motherboard can be put safely to one side. I'll now remove this board by removing the screws. So the screws are out, and the next thing I need to do is to tease up this little unit here at the end. Okay. And then that board can be put safely to one side. Having reached this stage, we can see the level of damage that's occurred to that hinge. It really is quite badly cracked all the way along. So I'll be replacing that top panel. And now what I'm going to do is just to gently lift up the bottom screen and put it to one side. Unfortunately, it doesn't look as if I can stop there because the actual hinge part is actually in the top screen and not the bottom screen as I'd have hoped. So I'll dismantle this, and the first thing I need to do is underneath these areas here are 4 rubber pads with screws. So what I need to do is to prise up those and get them out of the way. And I'm removing these by just applying pressure to one side with a slightly bigger headed screwdriver. Once I've taken the screws out, I can push this forward and then lift it off. Now what I need to do is to dismantle the rest of the top so I can actually get at the 2 hinges to put the new top plate in. Flick underneath that lens there and lift that mechanism out. Now there'll be a little bit of glue holding this together, so just turn it on its side and slide my screwdriver underneath there like that in order to separate the two. What I also need to do is to lift up the speakers and this board as well, because I want basically everything off. Gently lift up the loudspeakers, follow the cables around, so we want them to run on the other side. Same on this side, and again it's caught into a little groove here. Just gently prise that up Okay, the other thing I'm going to need to do is to pull this cable through, because this is obviously part of the connection on the joint. So I'm going to need to just gently unpick this and then flip that micro connector there. There we go. And now what I can do is I can gently pull this through here, hopefully without too much of ado, and then we can put that to one side. Before I work on this any further, I need to get this hinge out. Now on some of the models, the diffuser, which is the bit that changes the LEDs, this piece comes out as an entire block. On this particular one, it's quite solid, so what I've had to do is to push a screwdriver in there to release this block here to get to that hinge. Now I can lift that gently, but don't pull it, because the cables actually run through a tube here at the other side that has to be gently released. Having released the top, what I need to do is to turn it over and make sure, keep that cable out of the way, and make sure that the two ribbon cables slide along a groove that's on the inside. Okay, because that's the only way that they're going to come out of there without being destroyed. Okay, it's a bit of a fiddly operation, but they should eventually both pop out of there. And then let's just get this other cable out, and then we should be able to separate the two. Okay, and gently pull through that cable. And that's it. Here's the broken part. So here's my replacement top, and I've taken the buttons off the original because they're nice and shiny, and I'll use them here. So I'll put the button pads back, and now I'll slide the cable through. I've pushed the barrels back in and put the speakers back in place, and also the Wi-Fi connector. So what I can now do is to put the lid back on and slide it back up close together. Turned it over, and now what I need to do is to put the screws back and then put the little red covers on. So the DSI is back together with its new matte top, and let's see if it fires up. So everything's fired up.
Here we go!
So the machine's all back together again. Everything seems to be working well until you go to use the cameras. So I'm afraid that the crack which was on this side has affected the camera cables. And when I try and use the camera, I get this error message. So sometime in the new year I'll be replacing the camera cables for the DSI. But that's a relatively straightforward replacement of the case. I hope you enjoyed it. It's a bit tricky to do in places. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and have a look at my other videos. Thanks, bye.